What's up, everyone? DJ here at Top Deck Cards and Games. Hope you're all enjoying your quarantines, work from homes, whatever your situation might be right now. Things have been going a little crazy, obviously, so I've got a little more time on my hands though, and I wanted to do a video for my favorite cards, or top 10 cards, I think, from Duel Overload. Set just came out a little over a week ago. It's packed full of insane cards, OCG imports for the most part. And today I'm going to talk about the 10 cards that I think are best from the set that are new to the TCG. They're all link monsters. I was going to originally just do 10 links, and I realized they were really just the 10 best cards in the set anyway, so might as well just do top 10 overall, right? First, though, I do just want to say, if you guys can, it means a lot right now to support your local game stores if possible. I know a lot of people don't really have that luxury, or, they might not even have a game store that they're able to support or want to support. But, if you can, this is a very difficult time for them as well. I know TCGPlayer has a program right now on their website where you're able to actually search like proximity-wise from yourself for shops on there, so that you're able to order from your local stores and try to help them out. I mean, without the game stores, you're not really able to do any of this. We're not able to play games. I'm not able to make this content. It kind of is just the backbone and pillar of the community and keeps it going. You know, and that really applies to all of your local small businesses, restaurants that you can do takeout at, anything like that. This is going to be hard on a lot of people. I know it's hard on a lot of you. And if anybody's been affected by this negatively in that sense, I feel very badly. I'm sorry that we can't do more to help, but do what you can to support your local businesses, and that does include your local game stores. But with that said, let's just get into it. First off, my 10th favorite card from the set, or card that I think is 10th best, Sky Striker Ace Zeke. Zeke gives something to strikers that they've kind of needed for a while. It's a way for you to stay in a Sky Striker monster while dealing with a problem that's on the board. So in the past, if you needed to do this, you would have had to make something like a Ningirsu, or perhaps a Nightmare Phoenix or Cerberus, which is fine. You're able to make that. You have the materials to do so, but it kind of takes you out of your Sky Striker loop. You're not able to keep linking off and you're turn on a Shizuku, maybe use a Hayate dump, and that is really something that messes with the flow of the Sky Striker deck. So Zeke has the downside of being a rank 2 or link 2. It only gets rid of the card until your opponent's next end phase, so it's not like it permanently answers a card, but it lets you stay in those Sky Striker monsters, which is huge. It also synergizes really well with Rose. Since you're banishing your opponent's monster, you can take the card out of their extra monster zone, so that you can then summon Rose back and keep climbing and maybe go for some sort of play or combo, since you already have 3 link rating worth of monsters on the board. It also is able to pump itself, so in the Ghost Second, more aggressive Sky Striker versions, you're able to make this a 2500 attacker, which is bigger than all but the biggest Kagaris, so definitely lets you push some extra damage in the deck that way as well. I think this card is really good. It's number 10 because Sky Striker isn't in Insane deck anymore, obviously. It's just okay. It's able to go second and break boards pretty effectively. There's a chance with 2 anchors on the list now you're able to go first with the deck as well, but this card is brought down on the list to number 10 basically because the deck it goes in isn't that great. Next up, we've got Relinquished Anima. Relinquished Anima is going to fill a similar role to cards like Link Karibo or Link Spider in some situations, because it's able to be used to just get the level 1 monster off the board, put it into your graveyard, and perhaps give you a different name. This one doesn't work with tokens, obviously, so it's not going to, I guess, fill the role of Link Spider, but it will do the Karibo thing. Where this card is relevant because of that is something like with a Thunder Dragon Matrix, or perhaps in a deck like Orchest, though I think Link Karibo probably is the better card there still. But I think this is a really relevant card and an exciting release, because it's going to just force your opponent to play the game a little bit differently, just because they have to acknowledge that it's on the board. So, if you are playing, you can't put something that you're worried about getting relinquished against a deck that has any access to it in those zones right above the extra monster zone, because your opponent can't always just summon a Relinquished Anima, take that, your card is answered, no problem. Basically no investment from your opponent. I don't think this is going to see a ton of play right now because of that. It's also not very versatile since it's an up arrow, so it can steal your opponent's card. So it doesn't give you access to more extra monster zones, though with the new Master Roll, who knows how much that truly matters. My inclination is that links are still better than the other types of cards, so we do want those down arrows still when we can get them. But I think this just having a relevant effect on your opponent needing to care more about their board placement is interesting enough for this to make the top 10 list already. It's generic, it can make its way into a ton of decks, and it's just a powerful ability to have access to. Number 8, Simorgh, Bird of Sovereignty. Simorgh is really powerful, obviously. This couples with the next card on the list as well. It was the backbone of a lot of different combos. And it still is a really powerful card. It's awkward to make since it requires you to use Winged Beasts in order to summon it, but it makes up for that by just having such a high power level. Being able to summon an Apex Avion at the end of your turn, if there's not too many spell or trap zones used already, is just insanely strong. Avion's great. It's still great. Even if you don't have the infinite negate combo set up, like it's still just a great card to have on the board. So definitely something that you want to be doing, something you should be interested in doing. It is a little bit awkward. I don't know how often we're going to get value out of the extra Simorgh clause on the card. I don't know if we're going to be summoning Dark Simorghs or anything like that, but being a winged beast and being able to search for that Apex Avion, who lost my train of thought there for a second, is extremely relevant. So I think this card's awesome. It's very narrow, so it's lower on the list, and it pairs very well with our Raid Raptor Y-Strix. Y-Strix lost a lot from the ban list. It really wanted to play with the Lunalight stuff, as did Simorgh, I guess, to an extent. You're still able to do stuff with it that's really insane. I mean, actual Raid Raptors can do stuff. Blackwings lose a little bit of their steam as well. No pun intended there at all. But losing steam does really hamper that deck a bit as well. Y-Strix can still do a lot, though. Summoning Zephyros, which is just a combo machine. I mean, that card has done nothing healthy for the last, 5 years. Anytime it shows up in a deck, the deck is degenerate. It's doing something broken, and I love every second of it. So Y-Strix and Simorgh kind of go together. You're looking to do similar things. They're both Winged Beast support, and you're probably going to play them in similar decks a lot of the time. Next up, we've got Selene. Selene might be a little bit low for some people on the list because the card is actually just insane. But from my experience, the Pendulum deck itself isn't very good. Maybe someone will prove us wrong on that, right? There's a ton of stuff you can do. This card has a really high ceiling. It lets you put a ton of power on the board. It gives you access to a lot of effects from your deck. But on its own, it just hasn't been enough for me to make Pendulum good. I think that deck was not particularly close last format, and I don't think it's any closer now. But what Selene does bring to the table is a much higher ceiling for the deck. It's another great monster, 3 downward link arrows, and it just lets you make a ton of boards. But again, I just haven't thought that it adds enough to the Pendulum deck. That being said, the card is insane enough that I think it deserves to be in the top 10, just not quite in the top 5. First card in our top 5, though, is Artifact Dagda. This has the exact opposite problem that Selene has. This card is super generic. It does something great all the time. All you have to do is put an Artifact Scythe in your deck, and this gives you the ability to Scythe lock your opponent for a turn. That's awesome. The issue is that you have to play Artifact Scythe in your deck. It's kind of a downside, right? That is a brick. It's almost as Garnet as Garnet can be. Some decks are going to play ways to pop their Scythe, obviously. That's the point of you playing this. So you get a lot of value there that drawing it doesn't suck as much, since you're already assuming you're going to be setting it to pop it. This card pairs very well with another card on the list just as an option. We'll talk about that when we get there. And other things like Thunder Dragon, I've seen using this. You can set it, pop it with Thunder Dragon Titan. You can play it in basically anything, just as long as you create those situations. We'll talk about Needle Fiber in a second, obviously. Spoiler for anyone watching the video, Needle Fiber is a good card, and it's in this set. Because it can summon the TG Magician to pop it during your opponent's turn, which is just another really strong ability to have. And this card is just going to change rather turn 1 boards for a lot of decks, because you're able to set up that Scythe so much easier. Moving on to number 4, Predaplant Verti Anaconda. This card is actually just insane. I mean, there's so many good fusion spells. So often the problem with fusion decks is that you have to assemble too many pieces to make the combos work. And Anaconda takes the work out of finding a fusion spell. You're able to just get whatever fusion you need from your deck. Yes, it ends your chain of plays, but that's okay. Sometimes your fusions are going to be good enough. Just guaranteeing that if you can put 2 monsters on the board in a deck like Shadal's that you can use a fusion ability is really, really good. it's not game changing. Shaddolls were already a powerful deck. This isn't going to take them from nothing to good. You know, I don't think it's going to make a deck like Heroes suddenly good, but it adds a lot to those decks. And if you've followed what's going on in Japan at all, I know they just got a new list, so maybe this will change a little bit. But with the Red Eyes engine over there, this has proven to be just an absolute powerhouse. So right now, it's not going to be the most insane card around, but it does do a lot. And there's plenty of decks right now that I can work with. One really cool thing too is that it's able to get quick play spells, so you can search Super Poly with it and clear your opponent's board. It's going to take some metagaming to figure out what the best extra deck fusion monster we can play to clear our opponent's board with those Super Polys is, but I think that's just insanely strong on its own. The fact that we can play this and make its ability Super Poly, that's just great. So I think this card is very deservedly in the top 5 cards in the set. You could argue it could be higher, but I'm pretty happy with it right where it is. Number 3 is Lib, the World Key Blade Master. Lib is insane. I actually, when I did my first pass through the set, I skipped over this one completely. I don't know what I was thinking, though. I read it and thought, this is just fine. And it just does everything you could want. It's easy to make. It's just 2 monsters. You just have to have a World Legacy card in your bin. Not a big deal, especially if you're playing something like Orchest. You can have your World Wand in your grave. You can play any of the other World Legacy extenders. There's a ton of options. Then when it's Link Summon, you get to set a World Legacy card. So right off the bat, World Legacy Succession is just insane. It's a monster reborn. This has a Link era, so you can summon to the era that it points to. So it's done all the work for you, basically. You've made this, and then it's just extended your plays further on its own. If you don't need that, or depending on what your deck is playing or how you can set up, you can also get World Legacy Sorrow. So you just get a Solemn Judgment for it, for just for summoning your Link too. You're playing a Link deck already, so you're going to try to co-link. That's pretty reasonable. I mean, it's easy enough to assemble some arrows to point to each other at that point. That's just really good value right off the bat. Then if you link it away, if you're going second, or even if there's just a card you want to spin back into your own deck, you can return a card from the field to its owner's deck. So it's got power playing through a board. You could summon it, set a succession, play your succession, link it away. You get rid of a card on your opponent's board. You can summon something like Nightmare Unicorn, get rid of another card on your opponent's board. That is just so much utility for a card that's both a combo piece going first, an extender in the form of Searching Succession, and a way to clear cards off the board when you're going second. This card suffers from not being very generic in terms of what decks you can play it in, since we have to play those World Legacy cards. But the fact that you can make it with anything means we can use any extenders we want and still get into this. And that's just really, really powerful. I think this card is amazing. I missed out on it the first time I was looking through the set, but I've made sure to keep it in mind when I'm building decks now. Number 2, we've got Union Carrier. Union Carrier is the wonderful beneficiary of Buster Blader having nonsense support cards. The Buster Swordsman, I think, is the name of the one. Is a dark that prevents special summons from the extra deck. So right off the bat, you put it on something that has a protection effect or something large, or even just on your board while you have other negates and interaction, and you stop your opponent from being able to special summon from their extra deck. If you've played against any Vanity's Emptiness, Vanity's Fiend, etc. effects in the past, you know how insane that is. Like, that's ball game, right? There's so few situations where you're able to really clear those without some sort of dedicated interaction that it's going to force people to build their decks with that in mind. If you're playing Orchest and you're able to get this in play, put it onto a Dingirsu that can't or can prevent a destruction, suddenly it's even more limited the ways that you can deal with this going second. So Union Carrier is absolutely insane for that ability on its own. It also can do different equips. I've seen people play a whatever its name is. I don't know what the ABCA is, but that also has some utility with it, and a ton of other different things that you can equip as well. The big one is going to be the Buster Blader card, because that effect is just insane. Darks are a really played type of monster, so it's easy to get that on there. And this card is just going to change the way the game is played as well, I think. Finally, we've got Crystron Halkafibrax. Needle Fiber is a better name. We're going to keep calling him Needle Fiber for now. We'll see how long that lasts. I normally get broken after I start calling things their OCG names, because I only learned them a little bit ago. But we have been waiting so long for this card that it's kind of ingrained in my head at this point. There's like a legendary mythos around this card, because Japan had it. It was so broken for so long, and people were so scared that it was going to get released here and just ruin the game. I think we're past that point. Cards are just more broken than Needle Fiber. There's a ton of insane things you can do in a game of Yu-Gi-Oh! With a stack of Yu-Gi-Oh! Cards now. Needle Fiber is nuts, though. It's not going to be like this total game breaker like it was before, but it gives decks a way that they can really, gun for killing you. It's always going to get extenders, similar to how I talked about Lib, where you're able to summon the tuner off of it and keep link climbing. But more specifically this time, you're able to get something like a Jet Synchron, which I am amazed escaped the ban list with how they tried to murder all these tuners that you could play with Needle Fiber. You can get Jet Synchron, link it away into pick a link one, relinquished Anima, we've already talked about it, link Karibo, whatever. Pitch to bring it back, and you've got 4 link rating worth of monsters on the board right there that you can do something with. It's not going to be your game plan on all your decks. It's not going to be the way you plan on winning games, but right there is a 2-card Boral Sword if your deck is able to put that together, or a 2-card Appaloosa if your deck is able to put that together. Obviously, you have to pitch for the Jet Synchron as well, I guess. So 2.5, 3 cards. People like to evaluate that differently. I'm not going to get into that, I guess. But nonetheless, it's low investment. It's not taking a ton away from your extra deck. It's not taking a ton away from your main deck. And it's going to let you make those link 4s easily or climb through your links, give you more extenders. It also has the ability to summon a Synchro Tuner on your opponent's turn. This is really good because of, as we discussed with Artifact Agda, you can summon the TG Magician, pop your Scythe, and lock your opponent out for the turn. Sometimes that's going to be a play you're interested in, depending on what you feel like doing with your extra deck. That may be something that you value. I haven't seen a ton of uses for other things that it can summon, but Desert Locust is interesting. You get to take a card out of your opponent's hand, and hand locking your opponent is always extremely powerful, right? Taking options away is better than negating them a lot of the time. So that's another option. Normally I've linked it away, but outside of situations where I'm going to use the Wonder Magician to pop my Scythe, but it still has that opportunity to do different things like that. Or even if you're playing a more synchro-based deck, you could just make like a Formula Synchron and synchro with it on their turn. This card just does a ton. It's a great extender. It's a great combo piece. I love broken cards. I'm always all about getting the most insane cards for us to play with that I can. So from my perspective, this is great that it's been released. I'm going to have a ton of fun playing with it. I think you guys should too. And yeah, I think that's the best card from Duel Overload, though honestly, Union Carrier is pretty close in my limited testing so far. Just those lock effects are always so insanely powerful. But I think all of these cards have a great ability to change the game. It's a really strong set, despite being kind of a goofy supplementary set. And I think once we get some events going again, or maybe if people start organizing online tournaments, you're going to see these cards pop up a ton, and they're really going to change the way you want to build decks going forward. So make sure you check these cards out, pick up what you can, because nothing is too insanely expensive right now either. So I think it's a good time to jump in. I think needle fibers are like $30 right now, approximately. So yeah, it's a little pricey, but that's the most expensive card in the set, and it's going to be a really powerful card until they hit it if they do. So definitely pick those cards up while you can, guys. They're going to be really powerful. They're a ton of fun to play with, and I can't wait to do some more with them. Thanks a ton for watching. Let me know if you think I missed a card that should have been in the top 10 down below, or even if you think my order's off. I'm happy to argue about stuff like that. It entertains me. So let me know what you think. Be back with more content coming soon. Make sure you like and subscribe.